Hey guys, Phil here, hope you're all well. What you're looking at in front of you is the Xbox 360 Slim. I RGH'd in a previous video. I'll put a link to that because it's going to be very important for this video. But what I want to do today to this Xbox 360 Slim is I want to try and flash the drive in this thing with custom firmware. So if you stick around, I'll crack on with that. Now you may be saying to yourself, Phil, why do you want to flash the drive in the Xbox 360? Your console is RGH'd, you can run the games from the internal hard drive, so why do you want to flash the drive? Well, let me go and get something and I'll explain why I want to flash the drive. Now, what you're looking at is two CD containers rammed with backup Xbox 360 games, and you can see they're backups, they're not genuine discs. Now, the problem I'm having at the moment is if I want to play backup Xbox 360 game, right, one of these, I can't just put the game in the drive and then rip the game from the drive to the hard drive internally. What I have to do is I have to get the backup game disc, I have to put it in an external DVD burner connected to my PC. I have to make an ISO of the actual game. Then I have to extract the files from the ISO. Then I have to FTP the files over to the Xbox 360 Slim, and that can take a long time, and it's really annoying to do that because I'm jumping through hoops to get games on the Xbox 360, where if the drive was flashed, I just put the backup game in, it would pop up and I'd say copy it to hard drive, and then I'm saving myself a lot of time because it can take about 25 minutes, you know, it takes about 10 minutes to make an ISO, it takes another 5 minutes to extract the files, then 10-15 minutes to transfer the files over FTP to the internal hard drive on the Xbox 360 Slim. So you're looking at 25-30 minutes just to do one game, where if the drive was flashed, I'd just put the backup game in the drive, the Xbox would see it as a game, and then I could just go, okay, copy it to hard drive, and I'm saving myself a lot of time and I'm not jumping through hoops. So that's the reason why I want to flash the drive in this RGH'ed Xbox 360 Slim. What I want to do now is I want to show you what happens when you put a backup Xbox 360 game into a stock DVD-ROM drive in the Xbox 360. So I'll eject the drive, I'll insert the disc, I'll close the drive, and if you watch what happens in Aurora, there we go. It actually comes up, if we move to the cover, it does actually come up as Xbox 360 title. Now the problem is though, the drive cannot see the game partition on the backup disc. That's why you get no cover art or anything like that. It's because it's recognizing it as a game, but because it can't read the game partition, it can't do anything with it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the original Xbox dashboard and show you this again, because obviously you might not be running Aurora. So I'll show you what happens when you put a backup disc into an Xbox 360 with the original Xbox 360 dash. So I've gone ahead and done that. I booted into the original dash. This is probably how your Xbox will look. Obviously you'll only get the Aurora if you're RGH'd, hacked, and obviously if you install Aurora. But what I want to do is I want to open the DVD tray. Obviously I'm going to back up game in there again, and I'll shut the tray. Now if we take a look, what you'll see is it will come up, play disc, play game. There you go, play game. So the Xbox is recognizing it as an Xbox 360 game, but it can't read the game partition, right? So it won't start the game. If I press the command to start the game, what you'll see is the console will just reset, and that will boot me back into Aurora, because when I tell this console to boot up, it boots straight to Aurora. So, and there you go, it's popped up as an Xbox 360 game title, but obviously because it can't read the game partition, it can't read the game. And you may notice when you put an Xbox 360 game in there as well, when it comes up play game, you get a nice little image like an icon that pops up as well. Obviously that didn't pop up. So that's the problem you have with RGH'ed Xbox 360s. Yeah, the console is RGH'ed and you can run games from the hard drive, not a problem, and FTP them over there. But if your drive's still stock, if your games are all backups, you can't copy them over. So that's what I want to try and do today, is I want to try and flash the drive in the Xbox 360 so I can get my backup games running off it. What I want to do now is talk about my plan of action here, how I'm going to do this. Now the drive in this Xbox 360, I already know the model number because obviously I've been in there to RGH the console. I know it's a DG-16D5S. Now as I'm talking at this moment in time, there is no known way to dump the firmware from this drive, to read the key from the drive, or even write custom firmware to the drive. So you may be going, well, how are you going to do it then? I'm going to do it with the help of this board. This board is an LTU2 board. It stands for Light Touch Ultimate 2. What this board is basically is a replacement for the board that's in the drive. So you flash this with the custom firmware. You've got the drive key and you can create the custom firmware, and then you flash this and then you replace the board that's in the drive. Now you may be going, well, how do you get the key if you can't read the key, dump the firmware, or write the firmware to the internal drive that's in this Xbox 360? That's where the RGH hat comes in. The only way you can get the key basically is you need to RGH the console, because once you reset glitch the console, you can get the CPU key to decrypt the NAND. Once you decrypt the NAND, you've got everything, all the information in there. The drive key will come up. You can get the challenge response that you need to write the custom firmware as well. Now you may be going, what am I going to use to program this board? Well, I'm going to be using this here, this X360 USB Pro 2. Now you can still get these off eBay. They're the Chinese clone versions, but they function 100% like the original. This is original, you can tell because it's in the Team Executor case. If you purchase one of these from China, you won't get the case, it will just come as the bare board, but this is an original one from back in the day. So yeah, my plan of action is to obviously I've got the NAND. I'm going to extract the key file from the NAND. I'm going to extract the challenge response file from the NAND. I'm going to create the custom firmware. I'm going to program it to this board using this, and then I'm going to take the board out the drive that's in the Xbox 360, swap it with this one, and then obviously this will have custom firmware on it, and the drive will see those backup games and be able to play it. So yeah, let's crack on with this. So the first thing I need to do is obviously get inside the Xbox 360 Slim. Now I'm not going to show that, guys. The reason for that is because if you're going to do this, what I want you to do is go and watch where I RGH this console, because that's where I'll be when I start this. That's where I need to be when I start this. And so if you watch that, you'll see how you get into Xbox 360, you'll see how to RGH one, and then when this video starts, that will be at the very end of that video. So yeah, I'm gonna get inside this thing and then come back. And as you can see, I'm in like Flynn. Now I'm just going to give a bit of warning, guys. You need to be careful of this front faceplate. The reason for that is there's a very flexible thin ribbon that goes into the ring of light board just here, and it's obviously so you get the touch sensitive on and off on the ring and light board, but you just need to be very careful because you can easily damage that. So just be aware of that when you take this apart. Now, to get the DVD-ROM drive out is very easy. There's actually nothing holding it in. There's no screws. The only thing you have to do, you take a look at the back, there's a power connector and the SATA connector. Remove those and you'll just be able to pull the DVD-ROM straight out. And as you can see, I've taken the drive out the Xbox. Now if we take a look at the model number, you can see it's a DG-16D5S. Now there are other models that have a similar model number to this. There's the 2S, there's the 4S, and obviously this is a 5S variant. Now another important bit of information to take into account here is the firmware version here. You can see it's 1175. When I load the custom firmware to flash to the LTU2 board, I'm going to have to match the firmware that's on this drive, because the Xbox 360 will be looking for this drive with this firmware. So yeah, I'm going to have to match the firmware when I flash that LTU2 board before I put it in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get everything set up, because I'm pretty much ready to create that custom firmware. What I want to do now is show you how you install the drivers for the X360 USB Pro 2, because if you have Windows XP to Windows 7, you will not have a problem installing the drivers, but if you've got Windows 8 onwards, because Microsoft enabled digital signature driver enforcement, you can't install the drivers for this thing unless you disable digital signature driver enforcement. Now I'm using Windows 10. I think Windows 8 is a little bit different, the way you disable the digital signature driver enforcement, but I think Windows 10 and 11 are the same way. So the best thing to do is just go and look how you disable digital signature driver enforcement. But what I can do is show you how you do it on Windows 10. Now the easiest way is to boot your laptop or computer to the desktop. Then what you want to do is you want to put your finger on the left shift key, and all you want to do is keep your finger on the left shift key, and you want to click start, power and restart there, and all the time keep your finger on the left shift key. And what you'll see is, if you keep your finger on there, you'll see a menu come up. So there you go, that's what you need to come up. Now what I want to do is you need to go to troubleshooting, advanced options, startup settings, and then what you want to do is you want to click on the restart there. Now let the system restart, and you'll get another menu pop up. So if I let the system restart, now it might take a little bit because this has got an old mechanical hard drive in there, and there we go, we've got to the menu that we need to get to. Now if you look at option 7 there, disable driver signature enforcement, that's what I need to disable. So I'm just going to press 7 and Windows will reboot. So I'm going to let this reboot, and when it's rebooted I'll come back. As you can see, I booted up to the desktop. What I want to do now is install the drivers. Now what you don't want to do is plug this in. You want to install the drivers first. So I'm just going to go over to my D drive with my Xbox 360 flashing tools. Now everything you see in this folder, I'll zip up and put a link in the description below so you can download it. So I'm just going to go into my others folder, I'm going to go into drivers, and here you can see the X360 USB Pro 2. I'm going to click in there. The first thing I want to do is I want to click on the CK3i USB INF. I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to say install. Now it may take a little bit longer for the driver to install for you. I've already installed the drivers, but when it does install, you'll get this: the operation completed successfully. So I'm going to OK that. Now if you're wondering why I'm installing the CK3i USB drivers, well, this does data and power to the drive. So it's got the X360 USB Pro and the CK3i USB built in, both together. So it's basically two devices in one. So that's that side done. What I want to do now is install the actual X360 USB Pro driver. So again, I'm going to click on the INF. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say install. Again, it may take a few seconds for yours to install. Obviously I've already done it, and that's it. That's the driver installed for the X360 USB Pro 2. So what I'm going to do now is hook it up and show you what to look for in Jungle Flasher. So I've got external power going to the X360 USB Pro 2. I'm ready to install this thing, so I'm just going to plug it in to my USB port. You'll get the ding dong. Obviously you'll have to install the drivers. Windows should do that because you've already told Windows where the drivers are. You've already installed them, so you know, just wait a couple of minutes before you should get the devices installed successfully. But obviously I've already installed the drivers, so yeah. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to run Jungle Flasher. So I'm going to go back into my Xbox 360 flashing tools. I'm going to click on Jungle Flasher. I'm going to run Jungle Flasher. Give it a few seconds. You should see the lights flash on the X360 USB Pro. Jungle Flasher has started, so I'm just going to head over to DVD key 32, and you can see it's recognized it. There it is, Executor X360 USB Pro. That's correct. And if you look at the COM side, you can see it's come up as Executor CK3i. So that's the drivers for this X360 USB Pro 2 successfully installed. So what I've done is I've got my laptop ready. I've got all the files I need to do this. What I will do is every single program you see me use today, I'll put in a zip file for you to download, and I'll put a link in the description below. It will also have a link, just open this up, that you can use. I'll actually copy the select all, copy that, and I'll show you that you can use that link to use way back to go back to the original Team Executors forum, because obviously it got shut down. Nintendo shut Team Executor down some years ago. I think it was at the end of 2001 or something like that. They shut them down, but you can actually use a Wayback Machine to go back and look at the Team Executors guides, and here you can see it is not Jungle Flasher tutorials, and it just tells you how to flash pretty much every single Xbox 360 drive there was. And if I move down towards the end, here you can see the guide for my drive, the LiteOn DG-16D5S, and obviously firmware 1175. So if I click on that, it takes a while for web archive to load the page, because obviously it's a cached page, it's not there anymore. But if I go down, you can see there's the official guide telling you how to flash the drive. If I click on that, you'll see the guide. I'll just show you that all the images are still there, so you can follow them. There you go, look, tells you how to flash the drive using Jungle Flasher. So everything's still there. You can still use the guides to flash your drive. So like I said, everything you see in this folder, every piece of software I use, I'll put in a zip file, including that link to the way back to Team Executor's website, which shows you how to flash Xbox 360 drives. I'll put all that in a link in the description below, so you can download that file. So what I need to do now is I need to start extracting my NAND dump, and as you can see, I've got my original NAND for this Xbox 360. So to do that, I need to flash this drive, I need to extract 2 files from that NAND dump. So I'm going to start JR Runner, and I'm going to extract those files. So give it a second, because this computer is pretty crap. And there we go, we loaded up. So what I need to do is load my original NAND that I dumped when I RGH'ed the console, and it should be in Xbox 360 flashing tools. There it is, and there you can see it's NAND. So I'm going to open my original NAND. You can see there's 2 dumps, because obviously you do 2 dumps when you do the NAND, because you want to get both of them compared and the same. So I'm going to open my original NAND. It should also pull in my CPU key, and it has, just there you can see it's pulled in my CPU key. Now if we go over to the KV info, you can see there's my drive. It's a DG-16D5S. there's the firmware version, and there it is. That's the most important thing. That's my DVD key I need to create the new custom firmware. So what I'm going to do is I need to go up to the NAND, and I need to click on extract NAND, and as you can see, it's extracted my NAND. So I'm going to come out of that. I don't know why JR Runner puts it on the root of your drive. You can see it's just there. If I go into there, you can see here's my extracted NAND. Now the 2 files I need are this cr.bin file and the key.bin. That's the key for the DVD-ROM drive, and this is the challenge response file that I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy both of those, and I'm going to paste them into the root of that directory, so I have them, so I can create the custom firmware. Hopefully you can see what I've done is I copied the cr.bin file and the key.bin file over to the root of my flashing tools folder. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get everything set up, and then I can create the custom firmware using Jungle Flasher. So I'm ready to create the custom firmware for the drive. Now as you can see, I've got the X360 USB Pro 2 hooked up to my technically the old board that's in the drive. Now you may be going, well, why are you doing that? If you can't read the key, you can't read the firmware, and you can't write to the drive, why have you connected this up? Well, if you read through the guide for this drive, it says that when you create the custom firmware, it will pull a little bit of information from the drive, and it will add that to the custom firmware. So when you write that custom firmware to the new PCB, the LTU2 board that's going to go in this thing, that gets copied over there as well. Now it says you don't have to do this part, but it's nice to have. So technically you don't have to do connecting up the old drive, but it's nice to have that information. So obviously I've connected it up. If you take a look, you can see Jungle Flasher has recognized it. So yeah, I'm ready to create the custom firmware for this drive. So what I want to do is go to the firmware tool. Now obviously I'm going to be using an LTU2 board, so I need to load that custom firmware. And if you remember, the firmware on this drive is 1175. You can see it just there. So what I need to do is load that LTU2 firmware, that is 1175. And again, everything you see here, guys, you're going to be able to download. It's in will be in the zip file that you can download. So I'm going into the firmware folder, and I'm going to go down to the LTU2. There it is. And remember, my firmware is there. It's 1175, so that's the file I need. I'm going to open that up. That's loaded the firmware. But if you look, you can see the key is all F's. You can see the vendor is Executor, the model is LTU2, the firmware is Rev 1175. It's called LTU2 version 1.0. The original drive is a DG-16D5S, and the firmware is 1175. So that's all correct. What I want to do now is I need to tell the program to load my key and the challenge response file. So anywhere here where you see the cursor, I'm going to right click, and you can see where it says key C/R, which stands for challenge response. So I'm going to load those two files I extracted from the NAND dump I did earlier, and there's my challenge response file. I can't remember which one it asked me to load first. It needs the key first, so I'm going to click on the key.bin, and I'm going to open that, and I'm going to open the challenge response file, which is there. I'm going to open that, and I'm going to click OK, and then it should create the custom firmware for me. So I'm going to click OK. There you go. The light was flashing on the thing, so it's grabbed that little bit of information from the drive and stored it in the custom firmware. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this as custom firmware, right? And I'm going to save that, and there we go. That's my custom firmware made for the LTU2 board. You can see the original is a DG-16D5S, which is what that model is. The firmware is 1175, that's correct. There's my key for the actual drive, and it looks like everything was saved successfully. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect this. I'm going to get that LTU2 board, and I'm going to try and flash this firmware that I've just created to it. So give me a second, and I'll get everything set up. I'm all hooked up to the LTU2 board through my X360 USB Pro 2. I'm ready to flash this board. So I've got Jungle Flasher up and running. What I want to do now is I want to open that custom firmware file I made, and it's just there. So if I open that, there you go. It comes up with the right drive, the right firmware, and the key there. What I want to do now is go over to MTK Flash 32 and flash the drive. Now what I need to do now, I'm trying to remember what the guide said, is I need to press the intro device ID, and it should pop up with a window telling me that I need to power on and off the drive quick within 1 second. So I'm going to put yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to power it off, power it on, and hopefully, yep, there we go. The drive is in vendor mode. That's what I want to get. And also the SPI is unlocked. So that's we're all ready to write the firmware to this drive. So what I should have to do next is just click on the write the firmware. Are you sure you wish to proceed? Target has not been spoofed. Because I created the firmware, so I'm going to put yes. Because obviously I created the firmware. If I was using a original dump, then I would obviously spoof the drive, but I'm not. So and there we go, that's written and it's verified. What I want to do now is I want to click on the 00, that will lock the SPI. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click OK. There, that's the SPI locked, and I'm going to outro a few times. And I'll do it a few times. It says in the guide, do it a few times just to make sure, because otherwise the drive can get stuck with the tray open error. So I'm just going to do this a few times. So yeah, but as you can see, it's come up now with what the drive is. It's a DG-16D5S, which is what it is. The firmware is 1175. But it looks like that has been a successful flash. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unhook this. I'm going to get this all connected into the old DVD-ROM drive. Take the old board out, put this one in. Hopefully, now it's been flashed with custom firmware, I can actually load backup games. Obviously, what I want to do now is get into this DVD-ROM drive so I can swap the original board for this now flashed with custom firmware LTU2 board. So what I'm going to do is obviously take off this bit of rubber here. This is like shock, keeps the drive quiet so it doesn't create noise. Then what I need to do is I need to remove this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw, and then I can take the lid off. What I need to do now is get the old board out. So I'm going to start with the sled motor, just pull it out like that, and pull out the sled motor. The sled motor is what moves the optical pickup up and down its rail. It's called the sled motor. What I want to do now is remove the spindle motor. Again, just pull it out and pull out this connector just here. I'm going to remove the optical blocks. Ribbon cable, again, what you do is you lift it up and then you can pull out the ribbon like that. Obviously these connectors here, which do the open and eject the tray and everything like that, I need to desolder these. So what I'll do is I'll desolder these. When I've done, I'll put this board in exactly the reverse of taking this out, and then that's it. I should be done. And that's the LTU2 board installed with custom firmware. Hopefully now we can boot back up discs. Now if you're going to do this, guys, a quick tip before you put the lid back on and back together, make sure you take the little heatsink off the old BTL driver and put it on the new BTL driver. That thing controls all the motors, so the sled, the spindle and the eject motor, and it can get warm, so it needs heat sinking. So yeah, just remember to take the old heatsink off and put it on the new one. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is get this drives, front cover back on, well, back cover technically, get it in the Xbox and give it a quick test, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can load backup discs. And I've not completely put it back together because obviously I want to test it first. It's the moment of truth. So let's press the ring of light on the controller. It might take a few seconds for the console to glitch. So actually, do you see that? That was first glitch. First glitch. Winner. Normally this console takes anywhere between 1 and 5, but that one was first glitch. Okay, so here we go, guys. Moment of truth. Let's open the drive. Well, the drive opens, so that's a start. Put the backup game of Skyrim in the drive, shut the drive, and hopefully, please come up, play game. Oh, it's spinning up. Play game. Do we get the icon? And we do. We get play Skyrim. See, it couldn't see the game partition before. Now it can. And if I press the A button on my controller, you can hear the DVD-ROM drive speed up, and it should be loading Skyrim. And there it is. So yeah, guys, that's a successful flash of a DG-16D5S. Get in there. No more messing about anymore by creating an image, then extracting the files, and then FTPing the files over. I can just pop the game, the backup game, in the drive and rip it straight to the hard drive now. Winner, winner. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to spend 10 minutes getting this all back together, and then I can wrap up the video. Get in there. Please backups, baby. And as you can see, we're all back together. So let's power on the Xbox by pressing the ring of light on the controller. That was one glitch. 2 glitch, 3 glitch. There you go, 3 glitches. I told you it's always in between 1 and 5 glitches, and that was the 3rd glitch. So I'll just let this boot up now. And there we go, we're booting into Aurora. So what I'll do now is I'll extract the tray, I'll put the backup game in the drive, shut the drive, and I should get Skyrim pop up. Now I'm going to have 2 versions because obviously I've got one already installed on the hard drive, and I've just put the backup game in there, so it's going to pop up again, and it has. You can see it's just there. Look, you can see Skyrim, and it's got the disc icon, and if I move carousel around, you can see I've got 2 versions of Skyrim. So yeah, that's a successful flash of the DG-16D5S in this Xbox 360. Now what I want to do now, guys, is talk a little bit about the difference between the original Team Executor LTU2 board and the one that you put in these today, the one what you saw me put in. The ones you saw me put in was a clone version of the original LTU2 board. The reason for that is because obviously Team Executor are no longer around. They got shut down by Nintendo for releasing, I think, the mod chip for the Switch, and Nintendo shut them down, so they're no longer around. But these boards are cloned boards that you pick up from China, and they work well. You see, you know, they actually do work. The only difference is there's a few things missing off them. So on the original Team Executor LTU2 boards, what you'll see is, if you Google the image, there's a vendor button, and there's a SPI lock switch. When you read through the guide, it tells you to, one point in the guide, it tells you before you switch the drive on, make sure you hold the vendor button. There's no vendor button on the clone board. And it also says before you program the actual LTU2 board, that make sure the SPI lock switch is in the disabled position. Well, there's no SPI lock switch on the clone board. Now you may think that's a bad thing. Actually it's not. It actually makes it a lot easier to program those clone boards, because you don't have to do those steps in the guide. You saw how easy it was. All I did was press the intro button. It popped up after a couple of seconds saying if I want to get in vendor mode, I have to power cycle the LTU2 board. Try and say that 5 times fast. And then, you know, that came up. I press yes, and you saw me on the X360 USB Pro flick that power switch on within 1 second, really quick, and that clone LTU2 board went straight into vendor mode with its SPI unlocked. So the guide is 100% correct, but there's little bits in the guide that obviously aren't needed, that you won't do, like hold the button, turn the drive on to get in vendor mode. You don't need to do that because there's no vendor mode button, and there's no SPI lock switch as well. So yeah, that's just wanted to talk about that. But if you follow the guide, you just skip over those steps and you'll be perfectly fine. What I also want to say, guys, is this is the first ever DG-16D5S I've ever flashed. I've done the 2S variant and the 4S variant, but this is the first 5S I've ever done. But it wasn't that difficult. I'm actually kicking myself because I convinced myself it was difficult to do, so I kept putting it off and putting it off. If I know it was going to be this easy, I would have done this a long time ago, probably not long after I RGH'd this console. So yeah, not too difficult to do. A bit of advice I can give you guys is don't just read through the guide and then go and do it. Read through the guide 3 or 4 times, make sure you get it in your head, and then what you can do, if you start doing it and you get a little bit, oh, I don't know what's happening now, what you can do is, if I can get my tablet to wake up, you can actually sit there with the guide on a tablet and just go through it. And it makes things a lot easier. Like I said, I've flashed Xbox 360 drives before, so when I was reading through the guide, a lot of it started to come back and make sense to me. But yeah, there you go, guys. One flashed Xbox 360 drive. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Yay! I don't have to mess about anymore. I can just pop the backup game in a drive and rip it straight to the hard drive. Winner, winner. Catch you next time, guys.